With Microsoft swallowing companies and entities whole recently with the $70 billion deal with Activision and another $7 billion deal with Bethesda, something really clicked in my mind looking at how Nintendo approaches things, especially after all of the panic and $20 billion was cut off of Sony's market cap with the news literally instantly at the snap of the finger, yet Nintendo seemingly just stayed unscathed because of one thing: betting on themselves. Making sure to bet on themselves, and not only betting on yourself, but winning, not in the short term, but in the long term, in building what you have. Do not be known for something else. Do not let something else dominate to where if that thing happens to go away, or if they happen to get capitalismed, because that's essentially what happened here, you're not going to be feeling the end of that on your own pocketbook. So I think that Nintendo's done something very special here, and I want to elaborate on it because some people still don't understand what is going on with them. But before we get into any of that, and of course many other topics that we have, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. So let's elaborate on this. What does betting on yourself mean, and why did the Nintendo Switch bet on themselves and win? Well, I'm going to explain it to you right now, because if you look at it, Sony is looking very weak at this point. Not weak when it comes to the system, or not weak when it comes to their IPs, because that's very strong, but how they kind of panicked at this point, responded recently saying, well, we hope, or we think that Microsoft is going to oblige to the contractual obligations for Call of Duty, because guess what? Call of Duty dominates the sales charts. Activision games dominate the sales charts, even over Sony's own games, many times over Sony's own games. Games like Call of Duty just do so well on PlayStation, whether it's stuff like Overwatch and all of that. And for many years, heck, for decades, I've heard people say Nintendo needs to do third-party this, Nintendo needs to do third-party that. They need to rely upon this and that and that and this, but they don't look at it from the flip side. And this instance is the flip side, where $20 billion is cut off because Microsoft, a company that has Montana Max money, Richie Rich, Kanye West, whatever you want to talk about, Jeff Bezos type of endless money that they didn't earn, by the way. They went and used daddy's money when it comes down to it, because I ain't seen it from the sales of their video games or from the sales of their system. Went and used daddy's money to go purchase about 75 to $77 billion of third-party games, acquisitions, publisher, developer, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they legitimately purchased up so many IPs in the span of what, 6 months, right? The Bethesda deal, that happened last year and was a huge shock. Then all of a sudden you have this deal. They purchased up so many IPs, and everything that you thought was going to come through PlayStation is now all into question. Best sellers, big games, and Nintendo is sitting there, Shuntaro Furukawa is sitting there in his office with the Gohan pose, with the thumb pointed straight at him and said, I'm betting on myself. And they're winning, by the way, because look at the NPD charts. We talked about that. Nintendo Switch is still the #1 system being sold. It was the #1 system last year, and we already have analysts saying that it's going to be the #1 system this year. Yes, there is a chip shortage that Microsoft and Sony are dealing with, but even if you compare the Nintendo Switch sales to historically great systems like the PlayStation 4, like the Nintendo Wii, it's actually beating out those systems launch aligned. So chip shortage or not, the Nintendo Switch is selling at a historic pace, and it's going to continue to do well because Nintendo continues to bet on themselves and win. The biggest games coming out for the Nintendo Switch this year are not third-party games. We're relying upon Activision and those bums and what they've been doing, or relying upon somebody else, but you're making it yourself. And if other developers want to add into the action or add into the mix, they can do so. Like I stated before, definitely a double-edged sword, especially when you're looking to get that good third-party support and people will want to buy a system for that. I think people buy PlayStation for Call of Duty or buy Xbox because of so or so third-party game. But at the same time, what about when this stuff happens? Can you get people to simply buy your system for your first-party games? And can those first-party games be quality enough to carry your system? We saw that with the Nintendo Switch over the Wii U. We've seen it at this point even with the Nintendo Switch and how it started out over the Nintendo 3DS, which had more third-party support in the short term compared to the Nintendo Switch in the short term. But guess what system had the least amount of third-party support at launch, but had the best launch sales out of Nintendo's most three recent systems with the Nintendo 3DS, the Wii U, and the Switch? Yeah, you guessed it. It was the Nintendo Switch. It really only had the big game on there was The Legend of Zelda. Yes, they had Bomberman and there was some other titles on there, 1-2 Switch, but for the most part, everyone bought it because they had a big, storied, historic, crazy good game right there at launch because they banked on themselves. Whereas the Wii U, it launched with Nintendo Land and New Super Mario Bros., which is okay, and a bunch of big AAA, here we go with the AAA third-party games. And how'd that work out for that system? Yes, there were other things, but you can't bank on third-party, and Nintendo was relying upon third-party to sell the system, and it did not work. Same thing goes for the Nintendo 3DS, relying upon Street Fighter and some other stuff to sell the system, did not work. You need that big first-party support. You need to be like Ultimate Gohan, and you need to bet on yourself, and more chances than not, when you do, you will win. As Nintendo has shown multiple times with anything that's been a portable modular system, now you combine that with the home console support that you usually get, you got yourself a match made in heaven, a very good and dynamic thing with the Nintendo Switch. So bet on your own IP, bet on yourself, bet on your own studios, invest back into that. Nintendo said, we're not going to sit there and buy up this studio and that studio and this studio, and they don't need to do that. Just because Microsoft can sit there and spend $500 billion on everybody in the world does not mean that Nintendo needs to go out there and do that. And Nintendo really can't go out there and do that. But that doesn't mean that they need to. They can make their own games, they can have their own identity, and they can still win. The Yankees do this in baseball all the time, buy all the best free agents and everything. They don't win the World Series every single time. Other teams win. So just because you spend the most money doesn't mean you can't have other people that are successful. And I think Phil Spencer knows that, and yes, he tries to play the nice guy, which is a video for another day, but I don't believe him for 1 second. That's why I say bank on yourself. I don't believe Phil Spencer for 1 second when he says we're not trying to pull communities away, we're not trying to do this and that. Yeah, you are. We've already seen it with Starfield. That probably would have been a big seller on PlayStation systems. Yeah, it's Xbox. I think that once those contracts are up, when it comes to things, it's going to be heavily slighted towards Xbox on pretty much everything, Xbox and PC, and Sony's not going to get much, if anything, from Activision. So I don't believe them at all. That's why you need to really make sure that you build up your own stuff. Sony for years had been shelling out millions of dollars and shilling for Call of Duty and shilling for Activision and treating them as if they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And all of a sudden the rug just gets pulled out from underneath you and you are just left calling Phil Spencer, basically pleading or talking, having conversations about please keep Call of Duty on PlayStation, you know? And I don't know. I think it's just beneath these type of companies to do stuff like that. And I think that once those contracts are up, it's going to be over. Definitely in the future at some point. They're going to flex that muscle because that's what big, huge conglomerates do. They swallow entities whole and they do what they want at the end of the day. I don't trust the nice guy Phil Spencer. I do like my Xbox Series. I have it. I think it's great. I think that Phil Spencer is definitely good. He turned things around for Microsoft. But I'm not going to trust everything that he just says just because he's saying it, you know? So I feel that Nintendo's approach on betting on themselves, which is what they're going to continue doing. Look at the lineup for this year. That's the way to go. Bet on yourself and win, and you'll be okay. Sony has an opportunity here with Call of Duty maybe going away at some point. What about Killzone? What about SOCOM? What about Resistance? They have the shooter IPs. Obviously, those aren't as big as Call of Duty, but they have those to fill in somewhat of a gap here. So to me, I think Sony just goes back to that and they look at the success that Nintendo's having and saying, hey, we can do that as well. So that's why I like Nintendo's approach. And I think that Sony might mirror some of that, which they already kind of do with a lot of their first party games. Obviously not the same style as Nintendo, but they have a lot of first party games that they're known for and fans absolutely love. But maybe it's time to dig back into that well, because you never know who's going to be around, because you never know what Microsoft's going to do, because they just buy everything and they don't care. You know, they will take those exclusives away. They will take that Doom away. They will take those games away if they feel like it. You have no idea what they're going to do. Do not leave your fate in terms of things in the hands of somebody else that just might be sold at the drop of a dime. But those are my thoughts on it. Maybe it's a little bit different than yours. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the next topic here. We've got another addition to the Nintendo Switch Online. Nintendo is getting consistent, which is just crazy that they'd be getting consistent with this. But yes, Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack. It's going to be adding The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask this February. Now, if you don't remember, Banjo-Kazooie just dropped recently on the Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack, and they announced that in December. So they've been actually announcing the games that are going to be coming, which was one of the major criticisms that people had for this service. That, wait a minute, if you're going to be charging $50 and have N64 games, that's fine. But shouldn't you just let us know when those games are going to be coming? Or shouldn't we have some type of schedule? So far, we have 2 months in a row now that Nintendo has actually confirmed the next game and said when you're going to be able to get it. Well, month, not actual launch day, but month, which is much better than what they've been doing, which is just basically nothing. And then all of a sudden a trailer just appears out of nowhere. And I think that was one of the criticisms that they actually took to heart. At least Nintendo took to heart somewhat, because that was probably one of the biggest criticisms that I had for them with it, because I'm not a big Nintendo Switch Online person. You guys know that. I don't really play the games like that. I already played them back in the day. You know, so I'm not really someone that's going to be all crazy about it. But that was the criticism that I had, was like, okay, well, if people are going to pay $50 a year for it, at least let them know when the games are coming. Now, another interesting thing is going to be if they add Super Nintendo games and the NES games. Are they just going to get through all the Genesis and the N64 games, then kind of go back to the NES and then go back? Are they going to just be adding them randomly? There's still some issues to kind of work out here and there. But for those who don't know, let's talk about Majora's Mask, because this is a really interesting game. I don't like it personally, but the whole lore behind this game and what the game does is really unique. So Nintendo 64, Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack will add The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask in February, Nintendo announced. Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask first launched for the N64 in October 2000. Here's an overview of the game. An ominous fate also awaits you next month, unless you can avert it. That is, when The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask game makes its time-twisting debut on Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo 64. Nintendo Switch Online library in February. In this Nintendo 64 classic, Link has just 3 days to save the world before the moon itself comes crashing down, destroying Termina and everyone inhabiting it. Can you save everyone? It's interesting because back when this game first came out, people hated it. I remember, I was there, because I remember getting The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time day one. Me and my brother, we saved up for it and we bought it day one and we played the heck out of it, and it was absolutely incredible. And you see adult Link and you see all this cool stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Then all of a sudden you're like leaving the place and you're out here doing all this crazy stuff and this big weird moon and this kid dancing around and all these different masks and stuff. You're turning into different things and you're like, what is going on here? What is all of this? And yeah, people reacted harshly to the game. And I think over the course of time, people started liking it more and more and more and more. And then we had the 3DS remake of the game, or remaster of it. And then people were like, wow, this is incredible. I love the game. When they added all the nice little quality of life stuff and everything. So I feel that that's kind of what's going to happen here. But this time, it's not going to be hate from the beginning. You're just going to get a lot of love from Zelda fans. And I think that you might start to see a little bit of the changing of guard here with the Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack. Because I see people who are very critical about things, you know, not too long ago, all of a sudden start to retweet it and say, hey, this is pretty good. Hey, they're adding stuff. Now they're talking about it. So just like I suspected, which I did call this, just like I suspected with the regular Nintendo Switch Online, people said the same thing with that. They were hating on it. They were saying that it was terrible, that they were saying all this bad stuff and all this, oh, blah, blah, blah. It's not worth the $20. I'm not going to do it, blah, blah, blah. But people just got it. And like, okay, well, this is getting pretty good. They're adding games. So adding games makes it better. Like I said, hey, they're going to add games and people will probably like it when they add games. And that seems to be what's happening. It also seems like they're improving the quality of the emulation as well as they go along. So that's also good too. I know MVG talked about it on Twitter. So that'd be good as well. Improving the quality is also awesome. So what do you guys think about this? Are you on board yet? Are you not on board yet? What are you looking for? Do you think that Nintendo's going to keep the streak alive? Are we going to get another announcement next month? Afterwards, could Nintendo do 3 months in a row of actually letting us know what we're going to get? Well, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the final topic here, guys. We've got a 30 for 30 once again. Now, I've covered this before with the Famitsu sales, and this seems to be a reoccurring thing, and I don't know when it's going to stop. I'm guessing when Elden Ring comes out and when Horizon Forbidden West come out. That will stop the Nintendo Switch from completely dominating the top 30 charts in Japan. But once again, the 30 for 30 is here and it's real. Nintendo Switch dominates Japan, and there's no other way of really just putting it outside of just pure domination. Switch across the board. Gamatsu's reporting, Famitsu has published its estimated physical game software and hardware sales data for Japan for the 2 weeks spanning January 10th, 2022 to January 16th, 2022. Mario Party Superstars for the Nintendo Switch was the highest selling software of the week, moving another 22,108 units. And remember, guys, this is just physical. This does not include the Nintendo Switch eShop or any other online digital storefront or anything. It was followed by Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Pokemon Shining Pearl for the Nintendo Switch, which moved another 19,129 units. On the hardware side, the Nintendo Switch family of systems sold 94,523 units, which is really good for January. And the PlayStation 5 family sold 14,453 units. So it looks like Sony's getting some more units out there to Japan, which is good. Now the Xbox Series family sold 2,267 units, and the PS4 sold a whopping 17 units. So very good stuff there. And as you guys can see, or as you will see, all 30 titles were Nintendo Switch games across the board. A lot of Nintendo first party games, Capcom, stuff like that. Monster Hunter Rise got the new price on there. I got some new games that also launched. 2 new games that launched this week that were on there. Dying Light was number 12, the Platinum Edition from Spike Chunsoft over there. And then also Astroneer from PlayerEssence that launched at the bottom there at number 30. Nintendo Switch OLED model had the most cut of the sales with 48,824, while the regular Nintendo Switch, or more like Switch V2, I should say, sold 29,131 units, and the Switch Lite sold 16,568 units. For the PlayStation 5, the PS5 regular disc one is selling the best at 12,996 units, and the PS5 digital edition is at 1,457 units. Now the Xbox Series is completely flipped reverse. The Xbox Series S, which is the cheaper one, sold 1,848 units, while the Xbox Series X, which is the more powerful one with the disc, sold 419 units. So definitely flipped on that one compared to everything else. The Switch OLED model is going to hit 1 million units by itself in Japan next week. So next week's sales, it's definitely going to hit 1 million because it's at 993,807 units. So man, that's crazy to see that it already hit 1 million. The Switch OLED by itself, obviously not the total Switch number sales, but Switch OLED by itself in Japan hit 1 million. So that system is in high demand, and Nintendo's doing really well. And it kind of ties back to what I said in my first one here with my opening discussion, banking on yourself. This is what happens when third-party developers want to make something. Hey, look, maybe a Dying Light comes, maybe there's something else. You obviously have a Monster Hunter, you have Drum Master, Human Fall Flat, you know, you have some other games, Dragon Quest, but they're not getting all the big stuff and all that. And you know what, that's okay. Those are on those systems. If people want them, they can buy it. But at the end of the day, you got to do what you feel is best for yourself. And I think that that's what all the companies do. That's what Microsoft does. They're buying up everything. That's what's best for them because they want everybody to have Game Pass, and they're going to raise the price and all that, probably, because they have all this stuff that's coming. Nintendo's like, hey, we're just going to bet on ourselves. We have a self-preservation type of instinct and mindset. And Sony's kind of like, well, we kind of bet on ourselves, but then we also like third party. We do kind of both. So then we always have the most stable sales. So everybody kind of does what they want to do at the end of the day. But right now, they're getting cooked in Japan. Everybody's getting cooked. Nintendo is just dominating, and that's just the facts at this point. And I don't see it stopping at all. This is going to be the norm. You're going to see 30 for 30s. You're going to see weeks where Nintendo just dominates and just outsells 10 times, 20 times the amount. So that's been happening for a while now, and it's going to continue happening. So that's my thoughts on that. So what do you guys think about all the different topics here? From what I discussed with Nintendo and everything that's going on. From Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack, N64, Majora's Mask, And also the Famitsu sales here, 30 for 30 across the board, Nintendo Switch. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.